Daniel Hayes stood quietly near the large window of the human shuttle as it flew toward the Illyrian royal ship. He was not a soldier, not a leader, not even someone who understood politics. He was simply an engineer, a man who liked fixing machines and avoiding attention. Yet somehow, out of all the millions on Earth, he had been selected to greet the Illyrian princess during the first peaceful summit between their two species. Daniel still did not understand how his name ended up on the final list. He had no special skills for diplomacy, no powerful family, and no political training. He only knew how to stay calm when machines broke. And maybe that was why the committee picked him. They said he had a balanced personality. He thought they meant he was boring. As the shuttle approached the Illyrian ship, Daniel's nervousness grew. The royal ship floated in the darkness like a giant silver flower, glowing softly with blue and white lights. The petals of the ship slowly opened, welcoming the shuttle inside. Daniel swallowed hard. Everything felt unreal, like he was stepping inside a dream made of light and silence. Illyrians were known for their elegant designs and advanced technology, and seeing it up close made Daniel feel even smaller. When the shuttle landed, the door opened with a hiss, and a group of Illyrian guards waited outside. They were tall, graceful, and silent. Their armor shimmered like flowing water. Daniel took a slow breath and stepped out. The guards did not speak, but one of them made a small gesture, signaling him to follow. Daniel walked behind them through a long corridor that seemed alive, glowing with gentle colors that shifted as he moved. He tried to stay calm, but his heart was beating too fast. Finally, the guards led him into a grand chamber. High above him, soft blue lights floated like stars. In the center of the room stood the Illyrian Royal Council, dressed in elegant robes, and in front of them, standing on a raised platform, was Princess Arila. Daniel had seen her picture before, but the real person looked far more striking. Her eyes were bright silver, her hair long and pale like moonlight, and her posture was calm and confident. She did not look nervous at all, even though she was about to meet someone from a completely different species. Daniel walked forward slowly, hoping he would not trip. He bowed awkwardly. The princess studied him with quiet curiosity. She stepped down from the platform and approached him with smooth, graceful steps. Daniel tried to remember all the instructions he had been given. Be respectful. Move slowly. Speak gently. He repeated the words in his mind like a mantra. When she stood in front of him, he forced a small smile. On Earth, people shook hands when meeting someone new. It was simple, polite, and friendly. He thought maybe the Illyrians would appreciate a small gesture like that. So, without thinking much, he extended his hand toward her. The entire chamber froze. The guards stiffened. The council members exchanged quick, shocked looks. Even the floating lights seemed to pause. Daniel felt his stomach twist. He wondered if he had made a huge mistake. Maybe handshakes were offensive here. Maybe offering a hand was a sign of disrespect. He tried to pull his hand back. But before he could, Princess Arila made a surprising move. She reached out and placed her hand gently in his. Her skin was warm and soft, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, she trembled. It was a small tremble at first, like a sudden chill. But then her breath caught, and her silver eyes widened with something Daniel could not understand. She quickly pulled her hand away, holding it close to her chest, as if she had touched something too powerful. The guards stepped forward, worried. The council members whispered urgently. Daniel froze in place, confused and embarrassed. He wanted to apologize, but his mouth would not move. Daniel took a tiny step back. He did not want anyone to think he had harmed her. Princess Arila looked at him with a mixture of surprise and something else he couldn't read. Her voice, usually steady and soft, seemed slightly shaky when she finally spoke. This meeting "We'll continue later," she said. And then she turned away, ending the ceremony earlier than planned. The guards escorted Daniel out quickly. Not roughly, but with a strange tension in their movements. He could feel their eyes on him the entire time, watching him as if he carried something dangerous or rare. Daniel was taken to a guest room, large, clean, and filled with glowing Illyrian furniture, but he barely noticed any of it. He kept replaying the moment in his mind. Why did she tremble when he touched her hand? What had he done wrong? Was she allergic to humans? Was human skin too warm? Too cold? Too strange? The more he thought about it, the worse he felt. Maybe Earth's first big meeting with the Illyrian royal family was already ruined because of him. He paced around the room, trying to calm himself. He checked his messages, but Earth hadn't sent any yet. Maybe the council needed time to discuss what happened. Daniel hoped they wouldn't send someone else to drag him home in disgrace. He had wanted to make a good impression, not cause chaos. Hours passed slowly. Daniel finally sat on the edge of the soft Illyrian bed and tried to collect his thoughts. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. Maybe the princess was sick. Maybe Illyrians trembled when they touched something new. But those explanations felt weak. He had noticed the shock on everyone's faces. Something about that handshake meant more than he understood. Just when he was about to force himself to sleep, the door opened with a quiet sound. Daniel looked up, expecting guards or an advisor. But instead, Princess Arilla stepped inside. She had removed her royal cape and now wore a simple pale blue gown. She looked calmer, but there was still something intense in her eyes. The guards did not follow her in. She had come alone. Daniel quickly stood up. "Your Highness, I'm sorry about earlier," he said, trying not to sound scared. "I didn't mean to do anything wrong. Myron, I'm sorry reading. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. I'm sorry reading. I'm sorry reading. I'm sorry reading. I'm sorry reading." Her expression softened slightly. "You did nothing wrong, Daniel Hayes. The mistake is not yours." He blinked, surprised. "Then, why did you tremble?" Everyone looked shocked. "I thought I offended you." She took a step closer, her silver eyes shining gently. "It wasn't offense. It was something else. Something rare. Something impossible. I felt something when our hands touched. Something I am not sure how to explain in your language." Daniel felt his breath tighten. "What did you feel?" Arilla looked down at her hands, as if remembering the warmth of the handshake. "Among my people, there is an ancient belief. A feeling called resonance. It appears only when a member of the royal bloodline touches someone who is meant to change their path, their future, or even the path of the entire Illyrian race." Daniel stared at her, confused but curious. "Change your future? I don't understand. I'm just an engineer." "That is why it scares me," she whispered. "The legend speaks of a bond that forms instantly, without warning. A bond that can shape destinies. When our hands met, I felt a pulse inside me. Like energy, warmth, and clarity, all at once. It is not something I can ignore." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "Maybe it was a misunderstanding." Arilla shook her head slowly. "I wish it was only surprise. But what I felt has not appeared for generations. And when it does appear, it never appears by mistake." Daniel felt the air grow heavy. He had come here expecting a simple greeting, not a strange, mystical connection. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, the ship's alarm suddenly blared through the room, filling the air with a sharp warning tone. Arilla's calm expression turned serious. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine as red lights flashed across the walls. He didn't know what was happening, but the princess did. She stepped closer, her voice suddenly urgent. "There are those among us who fear humans," she said. "They will not want this bond to exist. They will try to stop it. Daniel's confusion deepened. Stop what? I don't. Daniel. She interrupted softly. You touched my hand. And now, everything changes. And before he could ask another question, the door opened again, this time not gentle, not peaceful. Shadows moved in the corridor outside. The princess grabbed his wrist firmly. Come with me, she whispered. And the quiet engineer who only wanted to fix machines suddenly found himself at the center of a fate he never asked for, but could no longer escape. Daniel followed Princess Arila through the corridor as the alarms echoed, through the Illyrian royal ship. Red lights flashed above them, turning the glowing blue walls into a strange mix of danger and beauty. Daniel had never seen an alien ship under emergency alert, but he knew one thing for sure: this was not a simple mechanical failure. Arila's expression alone told him that something serious was happening. She moved quickly but silently, her long, pale hair flowing behind her. Daniel tried to keep up, even though his heart was pounding loudly in his chest. As they turned a corner, 2 Illyrian guards appeared. Their armor shimmered, but their faces looked tense. They bowed slightly to the princess before speaking in their soft, echo-like voices. Arila responded in her native language, and although Daniel could not understand the words, he understood the tone. Something was wrong inside the ship. The guards looked at him suspiciously, then back at the princess. She gave a firm order. They nodded, but did not seem pleased. Still, they stepped aside and let her pass with Daniel behind her. Once they were alone again, Daniel whispered, "Are we in danger?" Arila glanced at him, her silver eyes reflecting the red lights. A group inside the ship has acted against the summit. They do not want peace with humans. And after what happened between us, they fear you. Daniel felt a cold wave pass over him. That is the problem, she said softly. You did nothing. Yet the resonance chose you. To them, that means you have influence over our future. They fear what they cannot understand. Daniel shook his head. This still felt unreal. A simple handshake caused all of this? A tremble that he didn't even understand? He had no desire to change anyone's future. He only wanted to help Earth maintain peace. But now the Illyrian ship was under attack because of a legend he knew nothing about. The alarms continued to blare as they reached another hallway. This one was darker, lit only by thin, glowing lines along the floor. Arila placed her hand against a small panel, and a hidden door slid open. Inside was a small room filled with holographs and control pads. She stepped in and motioned for Daniel to follow. The door closed behind them. This is a secure control space, she explained. Only the royal bloodline can enter. We will be safe for a moment. Daniel exhaled, finally able to breathe. So, what exactly is this resonance? He asked carefully. You said it's some kind of feeling when you touch someone who is important to your future? Arila nodded slowly. Yes. It is rare. Extremely rare. In our history, it has appeared only a few times. It is not a simple emotion. It is a connection of energy, instinct, and destiny. It warns the royal bloodline of someone who will shape the course of events ahead. When I touched your hand, I felt a pull inside me, as if the universe whispered something important. My tremble was not fear. It was recognition. Daniel sat down on a curved metallic seat, trying to absorb everything. Arila sighed. Some know. Some believe the legend. Others think it is just a story. But the group who attacked, they believe it deeply. And they want to stop it from becoming true. Daniel rubbed his hands together nervously. So, that's why they want me? They think I'm dangerous? Don't friend. Don't friend. They think I'm dangerous. Yes, she answered quietly. And they think I am vulnerable because of it. Bye. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but the room suddenly shook. A dull explosion came from somewhere above them. The lights flickered. Arila moved to the nearest screen and touched a symbol. A holographic map appeared, showing different parts of the ship, marked in red. "They are trying to take control of the upper deck," she said. "If they succeed, they could trap us here." Daniel felt his instincts sharpen. He was not a warrior, but he understood systems. He understood machines, power grids, and circuits. He stood up and looked closer at the holograph. "What powers this deck?" he asked. Arila raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because if they take the upper deck, they might try to cut power to trap us. But if we can reroute energy, maybe we can slow them down." She stared at him for a moment, then stepped aside to let him study the controls. Daniel took a deep breath. The holograph was complex, but the logic behind it was still engineering. He pointed to a junction. "This part connects 3 decks. If we isolate it, we can keep them from shutting down this area." Arila touched the controls where he pointed. The room lights shifted. The alarm tone changed slightly. "It worked," she said, a note of surprise in her voice. "You understand our system quickly." Daniel shrugged awkwardly. "Machines speak the same language everywhere. I just listen to them better than I listen to people." Arila smiled faintly. It was the first time he had seen her smile, even in such a stressful moment. Perhaps the resonance sensed that too. Before he could respond, the room shook again. Distant blasts echoed through the ship. Arila tightened her grip on the console. "We cannot stay here for long. They will find a way to reach us. We must move to a safer location." "Where?" Daniel asked. "The lower sanctuary," she said. "It is protected by stronger barriers." Daniel nodded and followed her toward the door. But when Arila pressed her hand on the panel, it did not open. A red symbol flashed. "They have locked the passage," she whispered. "They are faster than I thought." Daniel studied the door. It was powered by an energy grid behind the walls. If he could access the panel— "Can you open it manually?" Arila asked. "Maybe," Daniel said, "but I'll need to remove the front plate." Arila stepped back. Daniel knelt and examined the panel. There were no screws, no bolts. Illyrian technology used magnetically sealed covers. He slid his fingers along the edges until he found a small indentation. With a firm push, the cover came off. Inside were glowing lines, like thin streams of light weaving through a metal frame. Daniel carefully disconnected 2 of the glowing threads and reversed their positions. The door gave a soft hum. Then, it slid open. Arila looked at him with wide eyes. "You should not have been able to do that so easily." Daniel shrugged again. "I'm good with machines." She gave him a soft look, admiring, curious, and slightly troubled. It seems the resonance knew exactly what it was doing. They stepped into the next corridor and began moving quickly. The lights flickered again. Arila stayed close to him, guiding him through the twisting hallways. They could hear distant footsteps and raised voices, rebels searching for them. Daniel felt something strange. He was scared, yes, but he also felt a new sense of purpose. He didn't understand the resonance or why it chose him. But he knew one thing: he would not let the princess be harmed because of him. When they reached another chamber, Arila suddenly stopped. She pressed her hand to his arm gently. Daniel froze, feeling the warmth of her touch. "Daniel," she said softly, "there is something I did not tell you before." He looked at her, confused but attentive. The resonance is not only about destiny or change. It is about trust. Deep trust. When the royal bloodline feels it, it means that person is someone they can rely on completely. Daniel blinked. "Me? Why me? I'm just—" "You are calm even in fear," she said. "You think clearly under pressure. You act with honesty. And you helped me without hesitation. You do not understand how rare those qualities are." Daniel felt his face grow warm. No one had spoken about him like that before. Not on Earth, not anywhere. Arila lowered her hand slowly. The truth is, when I trembled earlier, I was not afraid of you. I was afraid of what this connection means for my future. Before Daniel could answer, the chamber's doors burst open. Figures in darker armor stepped inside the rebels. Their helmets glowed red, and their weapons shimmered with dangerous light. Arila grabbed Daniel's wrist again. "Run," she whispered. They raced through another hallway as the rebels charged after them. Daniel's heart pounded. But he kept moving. He did not want to slow her down. He did not want to be the reason she was captured. Ahead, a large door led to a steep downward platform. They reached it just as the rebels turned the corner behind them. Arila activated the platform. A blue shield formed behind them, blocking the rebels for a few seconds. As they descended, Daniel looked at Arila. "What happens now?" She turned toward him with determined eyes. "Now, Daniel Hayes." And as the platform carried them deeper into the ship, Daniel realized something powerful. He no longer felt like an outsider. He felt like someone standing at the beginning of something larger than he had ever imagined. The platform lowered Daniel and Princess Arila into the deeper levels of the Illyrian royal ship. The air grew cooler, and the blue lights dimmed into softer shades. Daniel could still hear faint echoes of the rebels searching above them, their distant footsteps bouncing off the metallic walls, like warnings. Arila remained silent beside him, her eyes calm but focused, as if she was planning every step before it happened. When the platform reached the bottom, they stepped into a long corridor filled with smooth silver panels and flowing lines of light along the walls. It felt quieter here, almost untouched by the chaos happening above. Daniel took a slow breath, feeling a small moment of relief. "Where are we now?" he asked softly. "This level holds the sanctuary chambers," Arila replied. "It is one of the safest areas of the ship. The rebels will try to reach it, but it will take them time." Daniel nodded, but he knew they were not completely safe. The rebels had already proven they were skilled and determined. They would not stop until they captured the princess, or him. Arila walked beside him at a steady pace. She did not rush, but she did not waste time either. Daniel watched her carefully. Even in danger, she carried herself with quiet courage. He could see why her people respected her. She had the calm strength of someone who cared for her people more than herself. Soon they reached a curved door that opened automatically when Arila approached. Inside was a large, circular room filled with glowing symbols on the walls. A soft blue mist floated near the ceiling, creating a peaceful, almost sacred atmosphere. Daniel felt a wave of calm wash over him the moment he stepped inside. "This is the inner sanctuary," Arila said. "Only members of the royal bloodline are allowed here." Daniel looked around slowly. "And me? You entered because I brought you," she said gently. "The sanctuary recognizes the presence of someone the royal bloodline trusts." Her words stayed with him. Someone the royal bloodline trusts. It still felt strange that she meant him. Arila moved to the center of the room and placed her hand on a pedestal. A glowing sphere rose from it, filled with swirling light. Daniel watched as she closed her eyes and whispered something in her language. The sphere changed colors, shifting between silver and blue. "What is that?" Daniel asked. "A link to the ship's heart," she replied. "It will show us the rebel movements, and it will tell us how much time we have." Daniel stepped closer. Inside the sphere, tiny light patterns formed the shape of the ship. Red lines marked areas controlled by the rebels. Blue lines showed the safe zones. Daniel immediately noticed something alarming. "They're spreading fast," he said, pointing at the map. "They've already taken half the upper deck." Arila nodded. "They want to corner us. They will try to reach the sanctuary next." Daniel studied the pattern carefully. "They're moving in a spiral formation. If they continue like that, they'll reach this level in 15 minutes. Arila looked at him with surprise. You understand our map this easily? It's all logic, Daniel said shyly. Patterns, movements, directions. Machines talk in shapes. She looked at him with gentle admiration, as if seeing something new in him again. Your mind, it works differently from ours. It sees things clearly, without confusion. Daniel shook his head slightly. Maybe it's because I'm scared. Fear makes you focus. Arila stepped closer, her voice soft. Fear is natural, but not everyone can think through it. That is what makes you rare. Before Daniel could respond, the sphere glowed red. Arila's expression tightened. They've reached the outer passage, she said. We must prepare. Crude. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. Prepare how? I don't have weapons. I don't even know how to use Illyrian tools. Arila looked toward a small storage panel on the wall. With a wave of her hand, it opened, revealing small devices shaped like curved crystals. These are shields, she explained. They protect, not attack. They are all we need. Daniel picked one up carefully. It felt warm and hummed softly in his hand. Arila pressed a button on hers, and a wide blue barrier formed around her arm. Daniel tried the same, and a similar shield appeared, though smaller and less stable. You must hold it steady, Arila said gently. Focus your energy. It listens to your intent. 1, 1, 1. Daniel concentrated, and the shield grew brighter. He gave a small, amazed smile. But his smile faded when the sanctuary doors suddenly trembled. The rebels had arrived. Loud metallic thuds echoed through the chamber. Daniel stepped back automatically, but Arila moved forward, holding her shield ready. Her calmness in danger made Daniel gather his courage and join her side. The door bent under pressure, glowing red from energy blasts hitting it. Then, with a loud crack, it shattered open. Several rebels in dark armor rushed inside, their weapons glowing. Arila raised her shield instantly, blocking their energy shots. Daniel copied her, holding his shield tightly. The blasts hit his barrier, pushing him backward, but he stayed standing. Arila stepped in front of him and deflected another shot with graceful precision. Stay close, she whispered. The rebels advanced. Arila moved quickly, using her shield to defend and push them back. Daniel stayed behind her at first, trying to stay out of the line of fire. But then, one rebel aimed directly at him. Daniel lifted his shield just in time, blocking the attack. The force sent a shock up his arm, but he stayed on his feet. Something sparked inside him. Not anger, not fear, but determination. He refused to be the reason she got hurt. He moved beside her and raised his shield again. The rebels looked surprised. For a human, Daniel was too fast, too steady. They had expected him to hide, to panic, to run. But he stood beside the princess, protecting her as she protected him. Arila glanced at him with a brief look of pride. Well done, she said softly before blocking another blast. The battle continued, the room filled with flashes of blue and red light. Daniel found himself reading the rebels' movements, predicting where they would shoot next. He shouted warnings to Arila, helping her block attacks before they came. Together, they pushed the rebels back, step by step. Finally, after a long moment of intense struggle, the rebels retreated from the chamber. They fled down the corridor, leaving only silence behind. Daniel lowered his shield, breathing heavily. His arm ached, his legs trembled, but he was still standing. Arila placed her shield down and turned to him. You were brave, she said. You acted with courage and clarity. You protected me. Daniel shook his head. You protected me too. I just did what I could. She stepped closer, her expression softening. That is enough. That is more than enough. Daniel felt himself relax. But the relief did not last long. The sphere on the pedestal glowed bright red again. Arila rushed to it and read the new signals. "They are trying to overload the ship's core," she said, her voice suddenly tense. "If they succeed, the entire ship will be destroyed." Daniel's eyes widened. "How long do we have?" "Not long," she answered. "Minutes." Daniel moved to the map. "Where is the core located?" Arila pointed. 3 levels up. The rebels are already there." Daniel thought quickly. "If they damage the stabilizers, the core will collapse. But if we get there fast enough, maybe I can fix it." Arila looked at him with a mixture of fear and hope. "It's dangerous anywhere," he said. "But if we do nothing, everyone on this ship will die." Arila hesitated for only a moment. Then she nodded firmly. "Then we go together." They ran through the sanctuary and back into the corridors. The ship trembled again as the core destabilized. Lights flickered, and sparks fell from the ceiling. Arila guided him through hidden pathways only the royal family knew. Daniel followed closely, ready to face whatever waited. When they reached the core chamber, Daniel's breath caught. Sparks flew from broken panels. The glowing machinery pulsed erratically. The rebels had already sabotaged several stabilizers. Arila held off the remaining rebels with her shield, while Daniel rushed to the controls. He scanned the damage quickly, understanding the problem in seconds. "They cut the energy flow," he said. "I can restore it, but I'll need you to hold the stabilizer plate steady." Arila nodded and moved to the panel he pointed at. Daniel opened another panel and began rerouting the energy. His fingers moved quickly, guided by instinct and logic. The ship groaned beneath them as the core pushed toward overload. "Hurry," Arila whispered. Daniel connected the final circuit. A bright pulse shot through the room. The core steadied, its chaotic glow calming into a smooth rhythm. The ship stopped shaking. Arila exhaled with relief. "You did it." Daniel turned to her and smiled weakly. "We did it." The last rebel was captured by the royal guards who finally arrived. The ship returned to its peaceful glow. Arila stepped toward Daniel and gently took his hand, the same hand that had started everything. This time, she did not tremble. She looked at him with calm certainty and said softly, "The resonance was right." Daniel did not know what the future held. But as he stood there with the princess holding his hand, he felt something new. He felt like he belonged somewhere far beyond Earth. Their story was only just beginning.